Good afternoon. Good afternoon. The time is 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, May 16, 2018, and this public meeting of the District of Columbia State Board of Education is now called to order. The roll will now be called to determine the presence of a quorum. Mr. Haywood, please call the roll.
President Williams.
Here.
Mr. Jacobson.
Present.
Ms. Carter. Ms. Carter. Ms. Wilson Phelan.
Present.
Ms. Wattenberg.
Present.
Dr. Woodruff. Dr. Woodruff. Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones. Mr. Weedon.
Present.
Mr. Batchelor. Mr. Batchelor. Ms. Rhodes.
Here.
Ms. Robinson.
Here.
Madam President, you have quorum.
Thank you. Members, we have a draft agenda before us. Are there any corrections or additions? Seeing no changes, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion being properly moved and seconded, I ask for the yeas and nays. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is approved. Members, we have the minutes from our May 2nd working session before us. Are there corrections or additions to the minutes? Seeing no changes, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion being properly moved and seconded, I will ask for yeas and nays. All in favor, say.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is approved. Good evening. My name is Karen Williams, Ward 7 Representative and President of the State Board of Education. On behalf of the members of the District of Columbia State Board of Education, I want to welcome our guests and our viewing public to our Wednesday, May 16th public meeting. The State Board typically meets regularly scheduled meetings on the third Wednesday of every month here in the Old Council Chambers at 441 4th Street Northwest. Due to the primary election in the District of Columbia on June 20th, the public meeting will be in room 412 of the John A. Wilson Building at 1350 Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest. Excuse me. Tonight's agenda includes a ceremonial resolution honoring the work of Mr. John Stone III with the Eastern High School Health and Medical Services Academy. We are honored to have Mr. Stone and his colleagues here tonight. Mr. Stone. The State Board will discuss tonight adopting an equity statement that will help to clarify and guide our actions as an agency. Every student, inclusive of race, religion, gender, and gender identity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic standing, immigration status, and disability status, must have the supports and resources to be successful in school. This body has worked to meet these ideals and will continue to do so on behalf of every student. We will also see reports from our high school graduation requirements task force and our student advisory committee. I want to publicly thank every member of both groups for their time and their hard work. I am looking forward to hearing their recommendations tonight. I also want to thank the Council of the District of Columbia and in particular Chairman Mendelson and Councilmember Grasso for their continued support of the State Board, the Ombudsman, and the Student Advocate through the fiscal year 2019 budget process. Through their work, the State Board will be fully funded in fiscal year 2019, and for that, we are extremely grateful. The State Board welcomes public participation in activities under our authority. At every public meeting, we begin with testimony from public witnesses on education-related matters. Your comments will become part of our official record. If you are a member of the public and would like to speak at future public meetings, please contact our staff by email at SBOE@dc.gov or by calling 202-741-0888. So we will start our public comment period. Is Jeff Jenkins here? You can come on up to the seat. Charity Chukwu. Chandra Onyeka. Have a seat. And Sally Schwartz. Okay, wait.
Do I start now?
Yeah, that's the part about on the microphone.
Minasan konnichiwa. My name is Chidera Onyeka, and I am an 11th grade student at Benjamin Banneker Academic High School, and I live in Ward 4. Japanese Plus is a free program which seeks to educate students about Japanese language and culture in an after-school class setting twice a week. We meet every Wednesday for 2 hours and every Saturday morning for 3 hours, which makes 5 hours a week at minimum. It is run simultaneously with the school year for high school students from DCPS and DC charter schools. This class benefited students like me who had a desire to learn something different from what was offered in our schools. The 3 of us are in our second year of the program, Japanese Level 2. In my freshman year, I embarked on a journey to learn Japanese, influenced mostly by Japan's pop culture, such as anime and manga. I decided to learn Japanese not to be able to understand untranslated works such as anime, so I went online and found various sources where I taught myself to read and write in Japanese, and then learned certain grammatical structures. As I continued my language study, I was further motivated to study Japanese to challenge myself, because Japanese is by no means an easy language to learn. I would go on about all the things that make Japanese a difficult yet interesting language to learn, but that's not the reason I'm here. I'm here because I found a Japanese class that satisfied my longing for a more social setting to learn Japanese, because learning it by myself proved effective in attaining the knowledge, but not so much as in retaining it. Without this class, I don't know where I would be in my Japanese studies. I've gained so much from it that I wouldn't be able to get on my own, such as a trip to Japan, interaction with actual Japanese people, exposure to a lot of college and career opportunities, and so much more. This is a serious language class, as it has required a lot of sacrifice, such as me putting aside time that I could use for community service, since my school requires 270 hours to graduate, or to complete the at times overwhelming amounts of homework I get to come to this class and dedicate myself to this language. Because it is not recognized by my school and we do not earn academic credit, my family is not enthusiastic about my future with Japan, and thus is reluctant to accept my decision to pursue the language. They could see the benefits of the language if it were to appear on my transcript, and could see that this is helping me towards my college career. Comparing myself to some of the other peers in my class, I find it unfair that their time in the class gets recognized on their transcript.
That's okay, keep going.
Sorry. I find it unfair that their time in the class gets recognized on their transcript by their school, thus helps them when they apply to colleges and universities, but the same doesn't happen for me. I don't think I want to study a language for 4 years and gain a significant amount of knowledge, only to further aspire to continue my studies in college, but only to have to start over, because what I already know won't be shown to the colleges I apply for via the credits on my transcript. Oh. これは私たちの夢です。ありがとうございます。What do I do now?
Me next. Now, hello everyone. My name is Jeffrey Jenkins, and I'm currently a senior at Dunbar Senior High School. I grew up in Ward 8, and my interest for Japanese culture was first sparked when I discovered anime and manga at a young age. I had always dreamt of visiting the country one day, but I never believed it would have come true, not until my 10th grade year of high school, when my former math teacher, Mr. Tanzi, informed me of a program called Tomodachi U.S.-Japan Youth Exchange, because he knew of my prior interest in Japanese culture. It was a 5-week summer program that I applied for and got accepted into. The program brought DC and Japanese students together for 4 weeks. 2 weeks in Washington, D.C., and 2 weeks in Japan, so that we could learn about each other's cultures. After the program ended, I wanted to continue my interest in Japan through learning the language. However, no school in DC offered that course. My school only offered Spanish and French, both of which only went up to level 2. So even if I wanted to learn the advanced levels of either of those languages, I could not because they didn't exist. Fortunately, Japanese Plus was just starting at the time I had came back from Japan, and from this program, I had the opportunity to study the language, give speeches in front of Japanese delegates, visit the Japanese embassy, host international students, and learn about full-ride scholarships that could allow me to study at undergraduate school in Japan. I had never dreamt. I even had the opportunity to visit Japan on a Kakahashi exchange paid for by the Japanese government. From this experience, I learned how helpful outside language programs can be for students who attend schools with limited world languages. It opens a massive pool of career options that would have never been mentioned in our schools. However, those career options won't actually become obtainable if there's no proof that we've ever taken the language classes outside of school. I strongly believe that students like myself should have the ability to put these languages on our transcript because it is something that we dedicate countless hours to studying, and it is not fair that our efforts go unnoticed or shrugged off as a hobby. My friend Bryce, who is also a member of our class, goes to a charter school, and his Japanese credit appeared on his transcript, which allowed him to get placed in the advanced Japanese class of the college that he will be soon attending. If charter schools who are also DC public schools can have their outside language credits put on their transcripts, why can't the rest of us DCPS students have the same privilege? We understand that with competency-based credit, we would need to show proficiency on an exam, and so the credit will not be guaranteed, but we feel that we are up to that challenge. Thank you for listening to our concerns.
Konnichiwa. 私の名前はチャリティ・チュクです。スクール・アウォーズ高校2年生です。7区に住んでいます。日本語を2年ぐらい勉強しています。Good afternoon. My name is Charity Chukwu. I am in the 11th grade at School Without Walls High School. I live in Ward 7. I have been studying Japanese for about 2 years. The Japanese Plus program is the only class where DC public school students can learn Japanese for free. Before this class, I struggled teaching myself with whatever blogs and dictionaries I could find online. Without my teacher's regimented structure, I never would have learned how to properly speak, read, write, and express myself in Japanese. As a student taking a language class outside of school with the Japanese Plus program, I will address 3 objections to the recommendations I have learned about. The first objection claims that schools may not have enough classes to offer to students who have placed out of their required courses. Schools should have classes besides the ones mandatory for passing, so of course students satisfying their math or language credit requirements should not mean that they will be left without a class. They can fill the slot with another class they need to take or one that matches their passions. Another objection rises from concerns that students may be able to abuse this system as an easy way to earn credits. However, this is unlikely. Students would only be able to earn those credits if they could demonstrate proficiency in the skills required to advance to the next level. I can say from personal experience that you cannot just fake memorizing the Pythagorean trigonometric identities, nor can you fake learning over 100 Japanese kanji characters. The third objection is that this change will not impact many students. No matter how many students this affects, it will prove to be highly beneficial to their education. For example, high school seniors will have an advantage when applying to colleges because they would have more than the required credits on their transcripts, which looks good to any college. None of the students in our Japanese Plus program have been motivated by the possibility of earning credits. And we know that if this new competency-based credit policy were put into effect for world languages, then it will come too late to benefit us. But we all believe that it is the right and fair thing to do, and would be a huge benefit to students who want to pursue the study of a language not available in their own school. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yikes. My name is Sally Schwartz, and I'm director of a nonprofit called Globalize DC. We try to give DC public school students greater access to global education, language learning, and study abroad opportunities. We know that DC students are learning languages outside of the classroom. Of course, we have many heritage speakers who learn language at home. And we have more students like these who are either living abroad, have lived abroad, have studied abroad, are attending after school or summer programs, or are teaching themselves a language. Yet there is no mechanism at present for recognizing, encouraging, or allowing students to build on these other modes of language acquisition. At the same time, languages offered within schools are very limited, in most cases to Spanish and French, and in many schools limited only to lower level courses. As long as students' learning is confined to the four walls of their own school, DC world language education will be limited and inequitable. This doesn't make sense. We live in DC, where languages are really valued in careers. We're an international city. So we want to build the capacity of our local schools to offer great language programs, including more language immersion programs, by the way. But we also need to recognize that students are learning outside of school. A competency-based approach to language credit will allow us to reduce the artificial barriers that exist between officially recognized language learning and unrecognized language learning, and create a more seamless approach that builds on the multiple ways that students actually learn languages. It will also allow us to create more viable pathways towards proficiency, bilingualism, and biliteracy for DC students. I'll just say a few comments about these students and our Japanese Plus program. A couple years ago, we had been sending students to Japan since 2013. Students came back, they wanted to learn the language. Japanese was not taught anywhere. So we decided to test whether we could offer an after-school program where any student in a charter or DCPS could take the language. We didn't know if they would come, but they're super dedicated, and what they didn't say is last month they competed in the National Japan Bowl. These are established school language programs, and they came 7th in the nation. So they have these two were on the team. But they've made the case. It needs to appear on their transcript if they're learning, because then they can build on this. And there is an unfairness built into the system. We think that competency-based credit is one tool that can be used to begin to think more thoughtfully about how we offer languages in the 21st century, and to do it in a fair way. Lastly, I just want to say that this is really the beginning of a process. Some of us have been advocating for a language roadmap, a way to really think about how we connect students to opportunities and to critical languages that are not commonly taught in our schools. So we urge you to approve this resolution tonight on the competency-based world language credit, but also to really investigate and see what other states are doing, to get public input. There are many aspects of this issue, and we just see competency-based credit as something that will be a very valuable tool for all of us and for our students. Thank you.
Thank you for testifying, all of you. Very interesting. Questions from the board members?
I'd love to hear from the students. First of all, thank you for your testimony, which is really compelling. Thank you so much. I'd love to hear from you. Do you think we should limit the number of credit hours that you should be able to get from your work?
Here.
I'd like to say that I don't really think that there should be a limit, because I feel as though if a student dedicates a certain amount of time to learning a language, then if they do place and are able to earn credits for what they know, then the amount of time that they spent learning that should be taken into consideration. I think that's it. Yeah, sorry.
She answered it.
I have to agree. If a student would have a limitation on how much they are able to progress in their education, even though they prove that they have the skills to go beyond that, I don't see why they should be allowed to why they shouldn't be allowed to do so.
Yeah, I have a question for anybody and everybody. I heard one person say that there was no advanced Japanese or Japanese at all, I guess, in the DC public schools. And I just wonder if any of you as students or if you have any ideas about what kind of advanced languages are available in the schools, what demand there is for that, the extent to which students who want to advance can do so in the schools. In terms of somebody said that advanced Japanese was not offered in any DCPS school, and so my question is, do you know if any other languages are or aren't? Is this just a general problem across the schools that we can't, there's no advanced languages or no?
Well, when you say
languages?
advanced, and I use the word critical, these are languages that are important in the economy and in government. So there aren't a lot of advanced level courses in any language taught certainly not in all our schools across the board. Chinese, a few schools offer Arabic, and Chinese is taught in more schools. Those are the two critical languages that are available, but the federal government is investing a lot of money, at least up to now, in sending high school students abroad to get them started on critical languages for a summer. And that includes Turkish, Korean, Urdu, Russian, and of course none of those languages are taught. So we have had students who travel abroad. I think of one student who actually went to Banneker, and he went to Turkey for the summer for 6 weeks, intensive language training as an 11th or 10th grader. And of course he came back to DC, and there's just nothing for a student like that. He didn't have the financial resources to go into a private program. So there are so many discontinuities and inequity. So of course some schools have 6 languages offered, and some schools, like Dunbar, only has level 1 and level 2 of French and Spanish, I understand. So
so that's my sense, is that at a lot of schools all you can take is French and Spanish, and in many schools you can only take a couple of years, and in none of them can you go very far.
Correct.
I just want to acknowledge one thing, is that my own son did try to test out of the foreign language requirement because he knew the language, and he was not allowed to do so, and so he did have to take another language which he did not do well in, did not care about. So to that extent, I totally agree with this. Students who know a language should not be having to take languages again, additional languages.
Mr. Batchelor?
Thank you, Madam President. I really just wanted to thank you all for coming and testifying, especially the students, on behalf of one of the recommendations that we'll be considering tonight. I think actually this recommendation really came out of conversations with you and your peers over the past 8 or 9 months in focus groups, where you said that you wanted the flexibility to get credit for the things that you learn outside the classroom. And so thank you and your peers for really bringing that to our attention and making sure that it became a part of this recommendation. And thank you for being here tonight to really underscore that for us and our colleagues, and for the many members of the task force who really worked hard to really capture your thoughts and your desires. And we know that there are students all across our city who are learning amazing things like you outside of the 4 walls of your school. And we absolutely believe that you should get credit for the knowledge you know. So thank you so much. Thank you, Madam President.
I'd like to close the session by again thanking all of you for your civic engagement to come educate the State Board of Education on the needs and the amazing programs that are available, and hopefully we can work together to expand your opportunities in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Merilyn Holmes. And Ms. Fuchs. Ms. Holmes, you can begin whenever you're ready.
All righty. Hello, everyone. Once again, I'm here to talk about our valedictorians and salutatorians. I'm Merilyn Holmes. I'm the executive director and founder of Total Sunshine, Inc. We're a nonprofit in the city, and we have worked tirelessly. I'm a little tired from it right now, to support the students and the community. And we also have a television show where we televise, of course, all of our efforts. We are looking forward to, with great delight, to meet the top graduates of the city. I'm talking valedictorians and salutatorians only. This is a picture of one of our groups. To date, we have supported more than 600 DC top graduates with laptops or tablets for college, and we are looking for the next 70 this year to be supported as well. Our event is scheduled for Thursday, June 14th, 4 p.m., 4058 Minnesota Avenue Northeast, Washington, D.C. We're hopeful to see each and every one of you there with some applause for these young people because, of course, to get straight A's in the city is not an easy thing. And I'll tell you, it's been something very interesting to try to find the support for the laptops that we need. We're still working very hard to find 70 laptops. Now, I'll tell you, these students have made straight A's. They deserve support. And if we can't support the finest students of the city, I don't know what message we're sending to the parents of the rest of them. I'll tell you, I know this is a super busy time and everybody has a whole lot to say about what they're going to do and everybody's campaigning and it's something else. This is my last time coming here before our event. And I had a whole lot of different things running through my mind about what I wanted to say. And I just want to implore everyone that can hear me to please get in touch with us about our school grade incentive program and this work that we're working on. Basically, 100% of the things that the contributions that we receive, they go out to the students. This is why we had to change our location this time. We couldn't afford the place that we had last year. We said, no, we can buy the kids some flash drives with that money. I'm not going to spend it. So now we're at a place that's giving it to us for free. The Marion Barry Institute for Youth Leadership, they're actually giving us the space. It's the same place that we had the Martin Luther King essay contest, Total Sunshine. We've done so much in the community. But when I tell you I'm on a mission until June 14th, we're accepting if someone has a small contribution, a large contribution, we're looking forward to hopefully hearing from whoever is as proud of these students as we are. If someone wants information on getting in touch with us, they can go to totalsunshine.org. They can email me directly at info@totalsunshine.org. You can call us up on the Sunshine line, 202-575-0462. Our show, the television show, has been awarded for Best Community Focus, Best Youth Focus, more than 20,000 votes. I'm going to be really interested to let our viewers know who exactly stepped up and said, hey, I'm proud of these young kids too. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope to see you all there.
All right. Hi, I'm Laura Fuchs. I teach at HD Woodson, and we're wrapping up our 11th year. And we're in the middle of AP testing, so it's been a really busy time. My, I guess, testimony today is going to be a little more eclectic than normal. Because I've got just a couple things that I think are kind of on the table in front of this board that I just want to reiterate my thoughts, which I've probably shared one too many times already. So one is the SS star rating system. I'm still highly concerned, and I think those concerns are shared with a large number of stakeholders about the stars being displayed at the top of every single page in the current iteration. It's without context, and we think it is unfair to have them at the top when we associate stars with Yelp reviews and Amazon reviews, and we really just assume that that is the measure of quality, and that it's based on usually like votes and reviews, and that's not what this is based on. We know the star rating system needs to be in there, but it should be on its page with context and not displayed everywhere, following you no matter what you're looking for. And that was not given as an opportunity to share directly on the survey that was given out to families. It was just about what the content was on every page, not on the header. And headers are important. They are everywhere. the first thing you see. It's almost the only thing you see on some stuff. So please just hope Aussie's listening. Like, take it off the header. Put it where it belongs on the pages with the context so people understand what they're looking at and can then make a fair assessment. For the high school graduation task force recommendations, I'm definitely in support of them, and I hope that Aussie will work with teachers to determine what is best in terms of how that test will look and operate, to work with educators on those issues. And I do appreciate that the task force limited itself to the 2 more skills-based courses and didn't try to expand it to courses that are content-based like history and English, where I don't think testing out is appropriate. So thank you for that. I think it's a measured way of seeing how this works for our system, and then can continue looking at it. Then I kind of started getting random here. So I was thinking about like the turnout at these meetings, kind of low. And it always makes me sad because the school board is important and more people should be here, like the students were today. And I think one thing to do is to consider how each meeting could have like a theme that's clearly broadcast to everyone so that like we could come and share, even if it's not something the board can directly take action on. It could even be, a resolution just saying, hey, here's what we think. Or just that you guys as individuals say what you think, even if as a board don't necessarily have a statement. So that people can have some focus and know why they're there, because it can sometimes feel like, oh, I don't need to testify because what would I testify about? So that was my thinking. Oh, and support the auditors and the whole new auditor system. That'd be good. You can do that as individuals.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Madison.
Ms. Holmes, I just want to thank you for being here, for all the work you're doing for our top students across the city. I've actually been approached 1 or 2 or maybe 3 times by folks in the community working on behalf of Total Sunshine, both at the Youth Leadership Institute, but I've had folks in Ward 8, Stuart Anderson, folks are really helping. So obviously I think me and I know, I'm not going to speak for all of my colleagues, but I know that we're all interested in making sure that we can recognize or help to recognize the students who are doing good work. And Ms. Fuchs, thank you so much for being here. One, thank you for your support of the task force recommendations. I think there were very difficult conversations, but I think we came out with the right balance that'll really move the ball for our students. Obviously, it's not a panacea. It won't change everything. It won't do everything we need to do to prepare our students for graduation or for life after high school, but it's going to make a tremendous impact. So I'm really proud of the work that we've been able to do. And thank you for your suggestions about how the board can better include the voices of our residents in our work. I know Ashley and I, as we chair the Public Engagement and Outreach Committee, are looking for unique and innovative ways, both for us to get out into the community, but also bring folks into this room during our monthly meetings, and so those suggestions are very good, and I hope that we'll be able to work on making some more effort to do that. Yep.
And just as like a funny thing, I ended up on some kid's Instagram because they were watching the public access channel and saw me at this meeting testifying, and so they screen capped it and then started sharing it with people. So like it does get around, yeah, even to kids, high school kids you'd think wouldn't be like watching the public access channel in a school board meeting, but apparently were. And then suddenly like half the school is saying, "You're on TV." It's like, why was that on TV? And then when they showed me, it was this meeting.
Absolutely. So absolutely. So we're going to make every effort we can to both make sure that we get out into the community to tell the good news about the work we're doing here, and also make sure that we give every opportunity for residents to find meaning and come into this space once a month. So thank you both.
Thank you. I would just like to thank both of you for coming today. I think it's really important that we continue to have our communities heard. And Ms. Holmes, sunshine is really important. It really highlights the fact that there's excellence in every school. and we need to continue doing that. Ms. Fuchs, I'd like to thank you. I appreciate what you said today. I believe that it is important for us as board members to also have a voice, and that we should be able to share them. And I also like to thank you for being on our task force. It's really important that we hear many different objectives and many different viewpoints on what is going on in our communities, and you bring that, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you for your support today.
Any other comments? Really like to thank our presenters, our good information that we're getting from our audience today. Thank you. Next, I will turn the floor over to our State Superintendent, Hansel Kang, for any for any statements she might have.
Thank you, President Williams, and I apologize, members of the board and the public, for being late today. I managed to put in 441 4th Street Northeast, which is not where this building is. So it's the first time I think I've made that mistake. So I apologize for being late. I just wanted to comment briefly this evening on OSSE's work around residency and enrollment. As you know, OSSE has devoted significant time and resources to improve the clarity and rigor of residency verification and fraud detection, including, importantly, working with this body, the State Board of Education, to thoroughly review and overhaul residency regulations, the new set of which took effect in March 2017, as well as assuming full responsibility for residency fraud investigations for both GCPS and public charter schools in the current 2017-18 school year, and increasing training for LEAs and instituting more rigorous procedures for auditing at the school level. We expected that these steps could identify additional cases of potential residency fraud and findings of non-residents in our schools, and we have indeed seen that take place this school year. So in particular, last week, OSSE published a report on our review of residency at the Duke Ellington School of the Arts, which is available on our website at osse.dc.gov. Finally, I look forward to hearing discussion on the resolution to adopt the High School Graduation Requirements Task Force's report this evening. OSSE was pleased to be a part of the task force, and we thank the task force members, the State Board staff, and the leadership of board members, including, of course, Laura Wilson-Phelan, for their time and their dedication and their input on this really important matter and the final report. OSSE looks forward to closely reviewing the recommendations expressed in the report, and will continue to work with the board, of course, on any policy changes that may stem from those recommendations. There are a couple of areas where we look forward to further discussion about the best ways to implement the recommendation while remaining cognizant of other current frameworks, including federal assessment requirements in math. But we look forward to those additional conversations and reviewing the task force's recommendations. Thank you. I apologize, the co-chairmanship by our Ward 1 and Ward 8 representatives, of course, Marcus Batchelor and Laura Wilson-Phelan. My apologies. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next on our agenda is consideration of a ceremonial resolution to recognize Eastern High School Health and Medical Sciences Academy and its significant impact on the lives of hundreds of students and alumni. We will consider the ceremonial resolution and then take a short recess to allow for presentation of the resolutions to the honorees, Mr. John Stone III. I will turn to our Ward 6 representative, Joe Weedon, for the motion on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd just like to briefly say that I've gotten to know John and the members of the BAC, the Business Advisory Council at Eastern, over the last 4 or 5 years, and have just been tremendously impressed by their work. And I want to publicly thank you for all you've done over the years, your support of the HMSA, and most importantly, its students, both the work at the school and through the scholarship for them as they go on to college. With that, Madam President, I'd like to move the motion, or move the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. Is there, there's been properly moved and seconded. Mr. Haywood, would you read the resolution into the record?
State Board of Education ceremonial resolution to recognize the contributions of the BAC and John Stone III to the Eastern High School Health and Medical Sciences Academy, CR 18-7. Whereas Eastern Senior High School, a DCPS school currently serving over 800 9th through 12th grade students from across the District of Columbia, was founded in 1890. Whereas the Eastern Health and Medical Sciences Academy, HMSA, was founded in the 1980s to promote career and technical education in medical fields including nursing, pharmacy, and emergency response. Whereas HMSA students have the opportunity to participate in advanced electives, including extra science coursework and internship experiences in emergency medical services and nursing. Whereas the Business Advisory Council, BAC, is a group founded to support this program by arranging for off-site lecturers and visits, summer internships, and scholarships for students. Whereas Mr. John Stone III has worked with Eastern students through the BAC for over 2 decades, including the past 10 years as the organization's treasurer. Whereas the John G. Stone III Family Foundation has given over $115,000 in scholarships to graduating district students. And whereas Mr. Stone III has been a cornerstone of BAC's board, serving as a friend and mentor to Eastern students, staff, and faculty. Now therefore, be it resolved that upon his retirement at age 85, the State Board of Education recognizes John Stone III's contributions to preparing district students for careers as skilled healthcare professionals. And be it further resolved, the State Board of Education recognizes the BAC's ongoing support of the Eastern Health and Medical Sciences Academy and thanks the Executive Board of the BAC for its commitment to the district students.
Thank you, Mr. Haywood. Is there discussion on this resolution?
I just want to say, as a scholarship kid, I wouldn't be here without people like you. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Ms. Robinson?
Hi, I'm a student at Ballou High School. I'm a junior, and I just wanted to say thank you. Although I don't attend Eastern, it's scholarships like this that can help fund students like me to go to college, and it's continued support from people like you who help motivate students. As they always say, it takes a village. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none, I would like to call the question. The motion is on approval of State Board Ceremonial Resolution 18-7. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? The motion is approved. The State Board will now take a 5-minute recess. If Mr. Stone and the representatives from the Eastern Health and Medical Services Academy will join us in the well, the members of the board will meet you there.
Okay, we got our front row ready. Got our middle row ready. Back row's almost ready. All right, we're gonna do a couple cameras. So here's the first round. 1, 2, 3. Oh wait, I'm kind of slow. Sorry. Keep smiling. Okay, and then I'm gonna do another camera. Ooh. Oh, it's so zoomed in. Okay. Oh, Paul's the pro here. Okay, 1, oops, okay, 2, 3. Thank you. I'm not a very good photographer, so want us to have options. Okay, I think, is that all of them? Yeah. Yes, thank you, everybody. This is one of the ladies, yes. That's pretty good.
The meeting will come back to order. The State Board's Every Student Succeeds Task Force has been meeting monthly to inform the State Board on the many issues, including revisions to our statewide accountability plan and the development of a district-wide school report card. The task force has developed an equity statement to guide their work, and tonight we will consider adopting the statement as a guidepost for the State Board. If adopted, the statement will become an official policy of the State Board of Education. Discussion on the statement will occur after a motion and second. I will turn it over to Ward 4 Representative and Chair of the ESSA Task Force, Dr. Lynette Woodruff, to make the motion on the statement.
So moved, Madam President. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Having been properly moved and seconded, Mr. Haywood, would you read the statement into the record, please?
DC State Board of Education Guiding Principles. The DC State Board of Education defines equity in education as ensuring that every student, inclusive of race, religion, gender, and gender identity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic standing, immigration status, and disability status, has the supports and resources to be successful in school. We believe these supports and resources must be child-centered, evidence-based, and reflective of the social, emotional, and academic needs of the student. Progressing towards the goal of success for every student and reducing disparities will include monitoring student progress on standardized assessments and relevant academic and non-academic measures, included in the ESSA STAR framework and report cards. By pursuing multiple measures of accountability, this system will hold all schools, school leaders, and staff to the same high expectations for progress and success for all students. The desired outcome will be that all DC students will graduate from high school fully prepared for college and career opportunities as engaged and active residents who are prepared to thoughtfully participate in society.
Thank you. Is there discussion on this statement, Dr. Wu?
Yes, thank you for allowing me to bring this before the board. We worked very hard, and it was a very intense conversation that lasted over months to come to this decision on how we worded the guiding principles in regards to equity. We really believed on the task force that the ESSA plan and equity go hand in hand, and so we needed to identify what we meant by equity in order to move forward on the task force. So this is work that was done over quite a few months, bringing in experts to give us their definitions or definitions that are out there across the country in regards to equity. And so we'd like to thank you for allowing this to be brought to the board from the task force.
Thank you. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call the question. The motion is on approval of the equity statement for the State Board of Education. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
The motion is approved. For almost a year, the dedicated members of the High School Graduation Requirements Task Force have met twice a month to examine the district's high school graduation requirements. The task force is one of the most diverse and representative of any formed by the District of Columbia government. Over half of the members of the task force live or work in Wards 7 and 8, where a majority of our school-age residents live. The members of the task force were selected through a rigorous application process that included a commitment by applicants to not only represent their own views, but also those of the communities and groups that they are a part of. The hard work of the co-chairs of this task force, Laura Wilson Phelan of Ward 1 and Marcus Batchelor of Ward 8, and that of our fantastic staff, especially Maria Salasochi. I'm sorry, Maria.
Salsacholi.
Salsacholi.
Yes.
Has resulted in a consensus support. Members of the public can review the work of the task force through video recordings and minutes from every meeting available on our website. Discussion on the report will be done in conjunction with a resolution that will adopt the report and send the recommendations to the state superintendent. No amendments to the report can be made as it reflects the consensus of the task force. However, amendments can be made on the text of the resolution. The motion will be on approval of the resolution, which means that the board accepts the report, the work of the task force is concluded, and the recommendations contained in the report will be sent to OSSE to begin the regulatory process. Discussion will occur in 2 rounds, with each member having opportunity to speak once per round. Each member will have 3 minutes per round. I will ask our Ward 1, that's me, Ward 1 Representative Laura Wilson Phelan and co-chair of the task force to make the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Having been properly moved and seconded, Mr. Haywood, would you read the resolution into the record?
State Board of Education resolution to adopt the High School Graduation Requirements Task Force Report, SR 18-4. Whereas District of Columbia Official Code 38-2652 requires State Board of Education approval of high school graduation requirements in DC Municipal Regulations Title 5-A, Chapter 22. Whereas increases to the high school graduation rates in the district over the last several years have recently come under heavy scrutiny. Whereas the 6-year college graduation rate for DC students was 23% in 2012, whereas over 80% of district graduates who enroll at the University of the District of Columbia take 1 or more remedial courses. Whereas the State Board of Education convened a cross-city representative task force of 23 students, teachers, principals, parents, traditional and charter public school representatives, representatives from the Office of the State Superintendent for Education, ward education advocates, teachers union members, special education advocates, workforce development representatives, and higher education professionals to examine whether the graduation requirements could be updated to improve student preparedness. Whereas task force members started their inquiry with 3 questions. How did DC graduation requirements affect student preparedness for college and careers? How did DC's requirements and approach for awarding a high school diploma compare with those of other states? And 3, how did the graduation requirements measure and recognize student proficiency on DC's learning standards? Whereas to answer those questions, task force members gathered feedback from their communities, conducted focus groups with current and graduated district high school students, gathered information from local and national experts on high school graduation, analyzed reports about best practices in graduation requirements, and shared their expertise with one another. Whereas the task force indicated that the purpose of the graduation requirements should be prepare students to succeed in the 21st century careers of their choice and lead civically engaged lives. Whereas to achieve that purpose, the task force submitted to the State Board a report making the following recommendations for changes to the district's high school graduation requirements. Number 1, provide an opportunity for students to demonstrate they have mastered course content for world language and mathematics. Number 2, reduce the number of required community service hours from 100 to 50. Number 3, create a personalized learning plan for each public school student in the district and revisit this plan in elementary, middle, and high school to ensure the student is on track to graduate. And whereas these recommendations reflect the consensus of the members of the task force, now therefore be it resolved that the DC State Board of Education adopts the high school graduation requirements task force reports in its entirety, and be it finally resolved that the DC State Board of Education advises the state superintendent to review the report and direct her staff to expeditiously prepare regulatory language to enshrine these recommendations into DC Municipal Regulations Title 5A, Chapter 22.
Thank you. Is there discussion on this resolution?
Discussion. Thank you so much. I want to talk a little bit about the task force itself. The idea behind this task force started over a year ago when, long before the media was paying attention to DC's high school graduation rates, I, together with my colleague Marcus Batchelor from Ward 8, began discussing how we could dive into the glaring gaps between proficiency rates and graduation rates without all the news, the media, and the flash, but because we deeply care about what's happening with our students, as I know so many of you in this room do. We knew that the solutions would have to come from the people who most experience the proficiency and preparedness gaps, and we began to design a task force of individuals representative of our students, teachers, parents, community leaders, school leaders, and systems leaders who could bring the ideas of their constituencies who are most impacted by this gap to the table. We devised a transparent process, building trust in our system, publishing applicant content, selection criteria, and everything related to this process online. We committed to and selected 50% of task force members to be people who lived or worked in wards 7 and 8, where 50% of our students go to school. The conclusions of this representative group were not easy ones, given that they represent such different parts of our city. They and our staff engaged deeply in a public process, meeting with student focus groups, a large group of student teachers and of school teachers and staff, inviting comments via Facebook, Twitter, feeding all of our meetings online through video, live video, and posting minutes and online video of every meeting. 2 strawman examples were shared with the public, including the board for consultation, which led to substantive changes in our recommendations. And the recommendations on the table tonight were shared with my board colleagues as like group proposals since March. In addition, my co-chair and I have updated the board of our discussions on the direction of the task force at every working session since the task force was launched in July. It has been my honor to co-lead this work of this outstanding group of individuals who did this out of love for their community and students. All 3 of our recommendations are grounded in equity, providing opportunities that meet the unique needs of all students. The first, to award credit for what students know rather than where and when they spend their time, would allow students for whom learning extends outside the walls of the school to receive credit for that learning rather than just by sitting 120 hours in a classroom, which is what's required now. That means students like the ones we heard from today who pursue learning opportunities in Japan can receive credit for what they know. And we limited this, as another public testifier said today, to the subjects that are most skill-based and for which we have rigorous, validated external exams, math and foreign language. Second, through our public process, we learned that the 100-hour community service requirement is a barrier to graduation for some students. We learned that for students who have to perform paid work in order to contribute to their family's income, it is difficult to spend time in unpaid work. And if they can afford to spend time doing unpaid work, an unpaid internship, which would probably help them find a higher paying job, doesn't always count as community service. We thought by lowering this requirement, we remain committed to this value in our system while more fairly and equitably making it possible for students to complete it. And finally, the task force spent significant time discussing the root causes of the lack of preparedness for high school success. And they found that they could not rest with recommendations only associated with changing around how our credits are earned. They know that students and our system knows when students are not prepared for success far before 9th grade. But we aren't necessarily having the kinds of conversations that alert their families or the students themselves to their not being on track to graduate, and even more importantly, not being on track to be prepared for whatever next steps they choose for themselves. So they wanted to find a way to make it public and inclusive, meaning public with their families, the information that schools often hold related to student preparedness, ensure that every student has a personalized learning plan that includes their families and teachers. For this reason, they recommended that at 3 critical junctures in a student's career at the close of 2nd, 5th, and 8th grades, students and their families received a personalized learning plan and a conversation about it with relevant school staff. They worried this would become an unfunded mandate, and they realized it needed to be piloted first. And so these recommendations are also reasonably a part of our recommendations. Overall, this task force did important, inclusive, and representative work at a time when high school graduation is now at the top of our headlines. They committed to this work before it was in the headlines, and I'm grateful to them for their service and to my colleagues for considering their recommendations today. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional discussion?
Madam President.
Mr. Batchelor.
First, I would like to thank my co-chair, my Ward 1 colleague, Laura Wilson Phelan, for her vision and all the hard work that she's put into forming this group and for including me in this work. I've been blown away by the conversations that this task force has had, and I think that it's completely attributed to the diversity of the task force and the representative body. I think, as was mentioned by my colleague and by the chair, the radically representative task force that we were able to bring together from different sectors, from different backgrounds, from different expertise, and they all contributed a tremendous amount to our discussions, our very long discussions over the past 8 or 9 months. And I think what my colleagues, what you have before you today and what the public has before them today, I think is such an exceptional product of those conversations, conversations that we had within our task force meetings, within focus groups, the panel discussions we brought into the room with counselors and administrators, and I really do think that the recommendations that we've put forth today, like I said earlier, are really going to move the ball in a significant way to promoting the equity that we need to both prepare our students for high school graduation, but also prepare them for college and the world of work. So I'm very excited to end the first leg of this work, but begin the second, which is really having meaningful engagement with the Office of the State Superintendent and with our students and families across the city to really get their feedback and to really explain to them why we think that these are significant steps that we need to take to make sure that our students have every opportunity to get credit for the work that they do, to get credit for the knowledge they have, but also to break down some of those barriers that have been holding our students back for far too long. And so I want to thank my colleagues for your consideration today, and we ask for your vote today. And as we begin to do the next leg of this work, I look forward to engaging our constituents across this city about the work yet undone to really make this a city that works for every student and gives them every opportunity they need to be successful. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Batchelor. Any further discussion?
Ruth. Thanks. So first of all, I want to acknowledge the really terrific work of the task force and thank the co-chairs for the enormous work they did, which ended up really being under the Klieg lights, which was not expected. I agree with much of what's in it. I learned a lot from what's in it, but I have some serious questions left about some of the proposals and especially about their implications. I'm going to abstain from this vote based on the process. And I want to talk a little bit about the process because this is really a conversation with the board and with the community about the right role of the board and the right role of the task force and the right process to follow. I think there should be a chance for the board to deliberate on these issues. I think there should be an opportunity for the broader public to be heard on these very important issues. I think there should be an opportunity for all of us to engage with our constituents on these issues and consider how they will affect students and schools across the city. And we haven't had that. The board received this task force report an hour before our last working meeting. We discussed it, although most of us didn't have a chance to read it in advance, but we talked about it for 6 or 8 minutes. And now it's in front of us for a vote, for us to pass this along to OSSI and recommend that all of this should be adopted. Well, I haven't had a chance to engage with my constituents on that. That's not how I take my votes. When we have serious business in front of this board, I talk to my constituents. I have meetings with them. I put out arguments in emails, and I have not had a chance to do that. A task force, I want to talk about the task force, which was terrific. A task force is typically convened, in my experience, to provide a board with broad technical expertise, broad experience that isn't present in the board itself, and to provide recommendations based on that. And this task force did that. But then it's up to the board to meld those recommendations with our knowledge of DC education, with the views of our constituents and the views of others around the city. Some think the task force is the final word. And if I don't accept that, it's dishonoring them. I don't think that at all. I disagree. Task forces can be very important. This one was terrifically important, and their work was good. But task forces, but I reject the idea that the task force is the final word. If that was the case, the mayor could appoint a lot of task forces on a lot of different issues, and that's how we would govern DC education. And I reject that. As a board, we reflect a wide range of views and understanding that no individual task force can or is intended to represent. If this passes, OSSI will come back to us. It will come back with proposals, and there will be a public process for substantively discussing it. And I will vigorously engage with the substance of the proposals then. I will give some sense of my substantive concerns in my next round.
Thank you, Madam President. Marcus, Laura, I want to thank you and especially the members of the task force for your work on this. I believe it is vitally important and significant. I have a similar concern to my colleague from Ward 3, and it really relates to the be it finally resolved, where we would be asking OSSI to enshrine these recommendations into DC municipal regulations. I really am uncomfortable with that because there hasn't been that public process yet. I do fully support OSSI beginning the regulatory process and having public comment around these and moving these regulations or these proposals or something similar forward. I have particular concerns around the community service regulations as proposed. I don't believe that paid work should count. I do believe, however, that we need to cut down that requirement from 100 hours to 50 hours. That amounts to 12.5 hours per year. And students, if properly supported, and we have a broad definition that we as a board, we as a state propose, will be allowed to meet that requirement without it being too much of a burden. But I do think that we need to be transparent in setting a high standard for all students in the sense of equity. All students should be held to the same standard, not different standards across the city. So I will also abstain from the vote because I'm uncomfortable with calling for OSSI to enshrine these specific recommendations into the code. I would support something if we ask OSSI to move the regulations, move the proposal forward into developing regulatory language. It's a technicality, but I do think it's a very significant technicality.
Yes, I'd like to thank Laura and Marcus for leading a very difficult process. There are a lot of regulations and a lot of policy that are already in existence in regards to high school. However, the implementation of them are very difficult and across schools, and that's why we've had such a difficult time making sure that all our schools are operating under the same standards, because I believe there needs to be some oversight in what's going on over time. In regards to the fact that I looked at the personalized learning plan as a child development specialist and early childhood specialist in special education, and have opened many early learning programs. To me, it is real significant that we begin to really address the personalized plan early on. And so I really appreciate that. I think it should be earlier. I really believe it should be like first grade and maybe third grade and maybe sixth grade, and then by ninth grade, the learning plan, the personalized plan, would be more so looking at, are they on the college pathway? What courses do they need to complete? So that would take it a step further. It's existing in many of the schools already. And so I see that as really important part of the plan. How it could be evaluated or measured is something that still needs to be addressed. But I appreciate that. I also want to say that the community service, some of the schools do more than 100 hours. I know one that does 300 a year, and to me 50 is not that much to ask, but I do believe there are a lot of children who cannot do community service without some form of pay if it's related to the area that they plan on going in, especially when you are homeless. You're being paid for your service is important, and so I do believe that's important as well. Thank you, Madam President.
Ms. Rhodes.
Thank you. When it comes to the graduation task force, I think I just have a few comments. The community service. Oh, can you hear me now? Sorry. My comments are mainly, I do agree with the personalized learning plan, because a lot of the problems with the proficiency for a lot of the students in high school is because they start those bad habits of being spoon-fed a lot of the grades and everything that they get early on, and it's a hard habit to break after so many years of it happening. So I do agree with that. The community service hours part, I also think that there are a lot of students who are not able to get the 100 hours. I've seen it this year. Because they usually do not start in ninth grade. My cousin actually goes to a school, I think it goes to a charter school, where they do community service hours every week, so they do acquire their hours. But my school does not do that, so my students have to go on their own and do it, and dropping it to 50 might make it easier for them to be able to get them, because I think some of them might be able to acquire 50, 100 is a little high for them, so then they end up paying for the rest. Though I do ask that you also continue to look at the proficiency in the classrooms more so than how to make it easier to graduate, because if when it comes to college, it's not really they're looking for how easy it is to graduate. It's more of what classes I'm taking, how proficient I am in those skills, and it's the same in the career force, and that's all I ask. Thank you.
Ms. Carter?
So I just want to first thank Marcus and Laura for your hard work over these past 9 months. I know you guys have been here many, many nights for a very long time, and that's not just the meetings, that's also the preparation that goes into these meetings, the thought process behind each meeting, and putting the task force together. I know we sat in just looking at applications for the task force, and that in and of itself took many hours. So once again, I do greatly appreciate all of your hard work that went into this. Also, I want to thank the task members themselves because they were doing this on a voluntary basis. They didn't have to be here. They wanted to. What I wanted to speak to, this report I read through it. We talked about it. I have gone through and looked at it over a period of the past couple weeks since we got the report. And tonight I will be voting for this report and for these recommendations. While not perfect, I do have some reservations with the community service requirements. This is something that I've expressed to both of you throughout the many months. I've also sat through and watched the specific sessions we had specifically on community service requirements. And some of the reservations that I do have is that community service, there is no one set definition for that in our state. And while also community service is limiting in the sense that it does not allow time for students to process and reflect upon their experiences. Also, I think that community service in and of itself, obviously we looked at it because it was such a barrier to students' graduation here in the city. These requirements specifically, I think we still are questioning the greater problem of students not actually completing these community service requirements. I do like the fact that we have limited the number to 50. However, and while it's in line with other states, I would like to see OSSI go back and look at whether 50 is an arbitrary number or whether there's other things that we can do, and maybe skewing that number, making it more in line with an appropriate amount of time. Last but not least, I would like to see a reflection put forth, leaving kids the impression to volunteer. It's part of a larger picture in society and our community in DC. Thanks.
I want to thank my colleagues and the terrific panel they put together of community members to participate in the task force work. I certainly wish it would have been able to go a little farther. I think I've expressed that in some working sessions and along the way in terms of giving students a little bit more flexibility in which classes they need to take and are required to take, to make sure that they have space to take classes they enjoy taking and to get them excited to go to school every day. We always don't get exactly what we want. I'm very satisfied with the terrific amount of input that went into these thoughtful input that went into these recommendations, and the transparent manner in which they were created, and the great amount of public input you've had along the way, including before this body multiple times. So thank you for your work. I'm looking forward to voting for these.
I just wanted to say quickly, thank you guys for your work. But a lot of worry that comes from like research and things that are done is it at is it at heart for the students? And I really want to thank you guys, because I feel like you guys really took the time to research and take into consideration what will best benefit the students. And me as a student, especially with the personalized learning plan, I feel like this is a great that these are 3 great ideas that will benefit students in the district, especially with them being guided to ensure that they graduate with the actual diploma that means something. Thank you.
I was going to make mine after second round. On the second round, any other comments?
I did want to comment. There's, in regards to the required community service, I think one of the things that makes it work at one of those high schools that has a high number that the students have to do is that they're given at each semester a number they need to complete. And so if you have 12.5 or 12 and a half a year, to say that part of it is within that first semester, you're required to meet 6.5. It seems more manageable than requiring that it's a total of 50, because then you're monitoring them. You're ensuring that at least throughout their 4-year experience, it's more meaningful because it's not happening all at one time. And I'm hoping that through this process, schools can do something like that. They can consider the fact that it doesn't mean that the 50 hours needs to occur in the last year, but over time. And so that's in regards to that, I think that's really important. And then one of the things about the personalized plan that I think makes it extremely important is that it allows the parent to be involved early on in their child's life in regards to looking at a long-range plan for education. And in the city in which we live in, where there are many languages spoken, it's a wonderful thing that it can be done in every language, and every parent can follow their child. And it's not just the responsibility of the school, but the parent as well, to ensure the success of their child. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, let me say a few things about the substance. First of all, I absolutely favor allowing students to test out a foreign language and math requirements if they have mastered them at a rigorous level. As I say, my own son was not able to do that and ended up in having to take low-level courses that he did very poorly at. They shouldn't have to take it again. And the fact that they have passed these assessments at a very high level, that should be acknowledged on their transcript for all to see. This was raised by the students. I think that's really important. And I think it's really important that colleges see that. I also think that if students take the time to go out and take a course, as did the students that were here, that also should be acknowledged with some competency-based credit, assuming they pass the assessment. I'm totally for that. Here's what I'm very nervous about. The way this proposal is set up, students get credit for testing out of up to 6 credits. We currently have 24. 24 minus 6 is 18. Students could graduate after taking 18 credits. In most schools at this point, students are taking 8 courses a year. So they would reach 18 by going to freshman year, sophomore year, and taking a couple of classes as juniors. I'm not for that. And I don't think most families are for that. And I'll also say I spoke today at a community day at an elementary school, and I asked the class there about this exact question. And I was telling Marcus there was a very divided vote. Every boy but one in the class was for, yes, I want to get out and let me out if I pass these tests. And every girl in the class was for staying and having an opportunity and the requirement to take more classes. And I will say we decided, since it was a tie, the teachers could vote, and they were on my side. So just saying. But But the point is do we want students to graduate at that level? My view, what I want to say to a student is if you pass these tests and you get these credits, that is great. You should be congratulated. You should feel great about yourself. Your family should feel great, and your college should know. But I also want to say you are a teenager. Your job is to be in school and learn what you don't already know. And our job up here is to make sure you can do that. And what I really wish this report had done was pushed much farther to say, yes, you get these credits, but now let's make sure you're able to enroll in a dual language, dual enrollment program and go take additional higher level math courses, higher level foreign language courses. Or maybe you don't want to go deeper, maybe you, having already meeting these requirements, you want to take, I'm sorry, it's going in the opposite direction. I don't catch it. That's why I'm doing this. I know, and I don't catch it. So I'll be very quick, but just let me finish. No, I know, but it comes after. Anyway.
I can't even see that. I see that.
So I want them to be able to access the advanced courses. And I also want to say we don't know how many students will be affected by this. We don't know the effect that it will have on a school if a large number of students don't have to go for the extra year. Will that mean there'll be a pullback in advanced language courses? Could be. At the high school in my district, where my principal is not for this, and no parent that I've talked to is for this, they're trying to already get kids not to come to senior year because there's not
I'd call the
room.
question.
Okay.
Madam President, I'd like to call the question.
Sorry. But there might be other people who want to talk.
I'd like to call the question regardless.
There are a couple more people who want to talk in case anyone wants to vote down the question.
Go ahead.
I didn't get a second, so it fails anyway.
Yeah.
I second it.
Okay. Mr. Weedon.
So just one quick thing on the community service, since it's come up a few times. I don't believe that we should lower the standard. I think that because some LEAs didn't support our students appropriately, that doesn't mean we should lower the standard. That means we need to explore from a policy perspective, what do those LEAs need to do to support our students and ensure that they're able to meet the high standards that we as policymakers set. Community service needs to instill the civic values that we want our citizens to have. And I don't think 12 and a half hours under this new recommendations is onerous if we have a broad, inclusive definition of what counts: service learning, volunteerism, and much more. With that, I do want to propose an amendment. My amendment would strike everything from in the last, be it finally resolved, after expeditiously, and replace that language with the following: begin the process to develop regulations based upon the recommendations of the task force. So again, starting in line 57, after expeditiously, replace the language with begin the process to develop regulations based upon the recommendations of the task force.
We accept that as a friendly amendment.
All in favor?
I don't see, where are they?
Page 57. You were given.
I do.
Phelan?
Yes, I just want to add a couple of thoughts as we bring this process to a close. I don't agree that our job is to design a system that is cookie cutter, which is what was done in the 18th century when our public school system was designed to put children in, or to develop adults who could go into factory jobs. Today is a knowledge economy, and our students need to practice and gain skill in how to build their content knowledge in ways that support them in ways that they can pursue it independently, in ways that our economy is most awarding right now. The very example is the students who are enrolled in this Japanese program, where our system does not honor or recognize their work and their knowledge with credit right now. I do not believe our job is to limit those students in showing us what they know and honoring that. Our job is not to devise a cookie cutter approach. That is not equitable. Our job is to make sure that our learning system meets the needs as much as possible for all students. And when we recognize a system that has 23% proficiency in one measure, which is a standardized test, which is not a perfect measure, but it is a measure of preparedness for success in college, we should be calling out the alarms and thinking innovatively about all kinds of ways that we can support those students. And those are the students we listen to in this task force. Those are the ones we're trying to redesign the system for in an incremental and smart way, recognizing that a ship, the Titanic, does not change overnight. And any time that you try to change the direction of a ship immediately, it tips over. And so we've put forward a set of judicious, thoughtful, and frankly, not as radical as I would like, set of recommendations, because those are what were represented by the voices of the constituents who represented this task force. And so I know that many of my colleagues echo this sentiment, but I just wanted to call out really specifically that actually our job isn't to assume that all 16-year-olds are X, Y, and Z, or that their job is X, Y, and Z. It's to actually recognize they're very different. And how can we create a system that awards, recognizes, and motivates those students to be the very best versions of themselves now, so they can be the very best versions of themselves as adults? And that is what we are here to do. That's my interpretation of the role of the State Board of Education, is to think about how we meet the needs of every student, not based just on my personal education background or experience, but really seeking to understand what the experiences and very different experiences are of many students.
Ms. Rhodes?
This will be very quick, but I'm sorry. This will be very quick, but I agree with what you just said, that I believe all of you do what you can to make a perfect, at least not perfect, but the best education you can for your students, including me and Tatiana. But I also think that reinforcement is important when it comes to the policies that you make. And for example, the attendance policy, when it wasn't enforced, and then when they finally got enforced in the middle of the school year, it made everything hectic. My people in my school was running around, I'm pretty sure in every other school, people were running around trying to make sure that what was happening was important. So I think that once you make a policy, to make sure that it's implemented, so especially with this community service, if you want schools to make sure that the students are getting those hours, those 25 hours that is at least required from my school every year, that the school is not only helping them, but the students are taking the responsibility to do it themselves, despite them having jobs and despite them having responsibilities in school. So enforcement of rules and policies is very important when it comes to making sure whatever the students are doing will make sure that everything is proficient for when they go to college and careers once they graduate, and that their diploma is worth it at the end of the 4 years. Because I know for me, I did everything I could, no matter what I had to do. And my diploma will mean everything to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. So first, I'd like to ditto the sentiments of my Ward 1 colleague, and thank you for those remarks. And second, I would just like to first thank my colleagues for all their accolades, but also all of the critical feedback that's been given over the course of this process, over the course of the past 2 weeks, and even tonight. I mean, Ruth and I probably should have moved in together as much as we talked about this over the past couple weeks. And I appreciate all of it, but what's heartening to me even more is that all of the issues we've discussed on this day is were discussed at length in our task force meetings. All of the nuances and all of the recommendations that we've discussed tonight and over the past couple weeks since the final report was submitted were discussed at length in the task force, and there were plenty contentious conversations, more contentious than this, and this very representative group of Washingtonians really went back and forth about what was the right direction for students, and I think what was, as my Ward 1 colleague said, what was judicious and what we could move on and what would set us on a course to really improve outcomes for our students. And a lot of the critical feedback that has been offered tonight, again, is also offered to our colleagues tonight and to OSSI in the minority report. And so all of those things will be considered over the course of the next few months. And obviously, I know Laura and I look forward to continuing those conversations with our colleagues. But you know, I just want to say tonight is not the end of that process. And tonight is not the end of these debates. But I will say, I think sitting in that room for the past 8-9 months and being able to discuss it at length with our colleagues over the past 2 weeks, I still come down to the conclusion that these are the very best recommendations that we could have made, and we've struck the very best nuances that we could have made, that we could have struck when it came to these three very specific issues. And I think, like my Ward 2 colleague said, we don't all get what we want. I didn't get all that I thought we should have out of this. Laura didn't get all she could, but when you have a room full of folks from very different backgrounds and you have the imperative to compromise, I think this is what you get, and I'm very encouraged by the report we're setting forth tonight. So thank you, Madam President.
I'd like to call the question, unless you had some final comments, Karen. Did you want to say anything?
I was going to call the question. Wait a minute, can I just say one thing? Thank you, colleagues on the board. This has been a very ambitious task force who's worked very hard. I know while I didn't attend all the meetings, I was right there with you, and I thank you for your efforts. And again, I'd really like to thank our staff for the support that they provided for you. So could you just stand up for a minute, please? Staff, stand up. We couldn't have done any of this without them. Thank you so much. Now you can call the question.
Now I call the question.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Wait, this is the amendment?
No, this is just to call the question.
Oh, to close the debate.
Okay, seeing no additional discussion, I'd like to call the question on the motion is on approval of State Board Resolution 18-4.
Wait, I think you want the amendment.
That was accepted.
Oh, it was accepted as friendly.
It was already
okay.
accepted.
Okay.
All in favor?
Roll call, Madam President.
Roll call, Mr. Haywood.
Mr. Jacobson.
Aye.
Ms. Carter.
Aye.
Ms. Wilson Phelan.
Aye.
Ms. Wattenberg.
Aye.
Ms. Woodruff.
Aye.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones. Mr. Weedon.
Aye.
Mr. Batchelor.
Aye.
Ms. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
Madam President, Resolution 18-4 passes unanimously.
Can I vote?
Madam President.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Point of personal privilege or personal something or other. I just want to thank Joe for offering that amendment and the task force leaders for accepting that amendment, because now I feel like I can say, in effect, we're adopting this. We're noting the recommendations and the findings and encouraging OSSI to move on with its work, and we will continue to have public discussion and public debate, and that all makes perfect sense to me. So thank you very much.
The State Board Student Advisory Committee is a wonderful resource for the board, and we consider policy and regulations that affect our public school students. Our student representatives, Tallya Rhodes of Woodson High School and Tatiana Robinson of Ballou High, ably led the Student Advisory Committee this year. Tonight, our student representatives and Student Advisory Committee members will present the board their recommendations, and then we will vote on the adoption of the report. Ms. Robinson, Ms. Rhodes, would you begin the presentation? Okay, because there are not enough seats at the table, can 4 of you sit there and the other 2 sit right behind, the rest of you sit right behind them? Yeah, Tallya, Tatiana at the table.
We can start.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We would first like to say thank you for letting us present to you guys. This presentation will mainly highlight some of the main projects that we forgoed as we met once a month or twice a month this school year. So this slide mainly highlights the two groups that we split into. We decided to actually do a survey with DC Public High School and DC Public Charter School students, and basically these are the results. And we chose to do these 2 groups because there were about 350 responses to the survey, and we thought that these 2 would be, we could actually get something out of it. So I'll introduce the college and career readiness. This is the group that I chaired, and basically our goal was to provide help and any resources to ensure that all district students graduate from high school prepared to actually tackle and do what they want to do in the world, whether that is go to college or seek a career with little or no problems.
And can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I'm sorry. And I chaired the Equal Opportunities and Resources for all DC schools, and we were just looking to find equity across all DCPS and DC public charter schools and the resources that the students get.
So our main projects included, for my group, the career fair and the mentoring program.
Sorry, my bad. And my group did the website for all students and conducted research for that website.
So for the career fair, the purpose was to bring like stakeholders together with different students in order to get them a chance to meet one another and establish relationships that they could have in the future. There are a lot of career fairs, but we thought that this career fair would give an opportunity not only for us to meet different people, but for it to be on a night that wasn't a weekend, because not a lot of students are willing to come out to things like this on the weekend. We thought that we make it accessible to Metro because some career fairs are harder to get into. And we just thought that this would be convenient because it allows DC public school children to basically interact with DC public charter school students. And we basically thought of a lot of industries, and you don't really get that at a lot of career fairs, but we plan to launch this career fair in October of 2018, and we basically, in my group, laid the foundation of the work that we hope to see, but we hope that the Student Advisory Committee for the 2018 and 2019 school year can carry this out for us.
So I was a part of the equal opportunities. Can you hear me? I was a part of the equal opportunity. Oh, my name is Jasmine Woodruff, and I'm on the advisory. And I was a part of the equal opportunities one. And we created a website to be able to have like access for students to be able to seek out sources for how to find scholarships and to prepare for the SAT, because I know that a lot of students across the city didn't necessarily know that you could have scholarships to be able to go to college and how to sign up for the SAT and to figure out how to apply for college. And I think that that's a really important thing for you to know, because not every school, I attend Banneker, and at Banneker, they put a lot of time and effort into making sure that we know how to set everything up for our success. But I know that not every student has that opportunity, so we decided to try to create like basically a website where there was like a place where all students could be able to have equal opportunity to see what they need to do to become successful.
Okay, my group also worked on the mentoring program, and basically this was a program that allowed high school students, specifically upperclassmen, to mentor and guide lowerclassmen. And we launched this school year, but we only had about 10 mentor-mentee pairs. So we're hoping that, again, the Student Advisory Committee for next year will carry this out. But basically our main principles of this program was to allow students from all across the district, no matter what high school you went to interact with each other, and for them to learn for each other. And basically, some students learn more and find it more helpful to hear from their peers than from an adult, because we listen to teachers teach, but sometimes it's more meaningful to you if it comes from your peer. So we thought that getting one-on-one help with schoolwork or advice or just support in general will help lowerclassmen to cope with not only being in high school, but different graduation requirements you need, or just how to survive in high school. And we just hope that once the upperclassmen graduate, that the relationship will continue with the lowerclassmen, and that the lowerclassmen would eventually become mentors to continue to carry out the program. This is the picture, the homepage of the website, if you guys can see it. And basically, it just highlights different resources. And we thought that the website was convenient because everything was all in one place for students to go to.
So Tatiana had chosen an infographic on park testing in 2017. So this is showing like one of the reasons why we believe our task force is so important, because we still notice that there's inequity and differences between racial groups and park test scoring. So we believe that although park is an academic way to show the differences, that through our task force and working on different ways to provide equity amongst our students, that we can improve these differences among racial groups and socioeconomic groups.
And in agreement with her, when we conducted our survey, we found that more of the students who felt that they had a lack of resources, they felt like a mentoring program or doing more things to get them college and career ready, and also having equitable resources east of the river, as well as any high school in DC, that having resources like this, such as the mentoring program, can provide tutoring to help students not only raise park scores, but just give them support and anything that they need in order to prepare for college and or their career.
These are some ideas for the, can you hear me? Hold on. These are some ideas for the future that the Student Advisory Committee has came up with, and they are, finishing the planning for the career fair, completing the website, sending out new applications for most students to apply for the mentoring program, and conducting surveys to continue research that students, especially in high school, need.
And with the future of the Student Advisory Committee, most of our people on the committee will be graduating, but we hope that students who aren't graduating will return and help to carry out work that we started this year, because we did a lot of research, especially with speaking directly to the students to figure out what they wanted to see specifically for this committee. So with students coming back and bringing new students, I feel like we can all work together to bring resources that can benefit all students in the district. Thank you.
Board members, are there any questions or comments? Ms. Carter?
Ladies, I just want to say thank you very much for all of your hard work this year. Reading this report, I was just very thrilled to see all of the hard work, all of the time and effort put into everything that you guys did. And I really appreciate, especially Tallya and Tatiana, your opinions and your comments throughout this entire year. And you took those comments and from your student advisory committee, you went to them, you talked to them about what was going on, and you really solicited their feedback and thought about what you guys were going to say when you were up here and speaking to the board. I really appreciate that, and you were a welcome addition, and I hope you guys have much success now over the summer and in your future endeavors.
I want to second all of that. I really appreciated the couple meetings that I did go to and having the two of you up here on the panel discussing stuff. I also hope some of this, particularly the college resources, but others as well, makes sense possibly to put on our own website. And I don't know if you guys have talked to our staff about making that possible, or if because I mean, I could see over time that sort of a set of resources from students could become part of what goes on our website, and it would be terrific.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and we actually created the website, so it's launched. But students, when we asked, like within our own schools, felt like not only going to the state board website, but having our own website to go to where you didn't have to navigate. Okay. Yeah, where you didn't have to navigate to a specific tab that's meant for us, but for it to be a website that's just for us, they felt like it was easier to navigate.
That makes sense because ours is not easy to navigate.
Yeah,
so
it's a lot of tabs on
it. Makes a lot of
there.
sense. But maybe we could have a link on it to help people get there. But thanks again, really, all of you. I thought it was a great experience working with you.
Mr. Batchelor.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to thank our student members and the entire Student Advisory Committee for your hard work over the past year. We really appreciate you taking the time to really advocate on behalf of your peers, and all of you kind of know a little bit about my background, and so I appreciate so much student voice and really being able to be contributive members of this process, because you are the most directly affected by any decision that's made on this dais. And so for all of you who contributed to the conversation, thank you. And to Ms. Rhodes and Ms. Robinson, thank you for being fierce advocates for your peers over the past few months. And know it or not, but I'm sure you do, your comments and your feedback and just your presence have really changed the dynamic of the conversation on this board. And so I really just want to underscore, even though I know you confidently already know, that you were such an important part of this conversation, and that your voice matters, and I dare say mattered most when we were making these decisions on a host of different issues. So thank you so much for your hard work. Thank you for this report that I know all of our colleagues will really take in, and thank you for your plans for the future, because you know that it doesn't end with your tenure, and it doesn't end here, but that you're actually setting a benchmark and a footprint for those who will come after you. I think is very impressive, and you should really be commended for that. So thank you to you, and thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Jacobson.
Thank you, Madam President. This question is for all 8 students that are here. What can we as a board do better, and what more can we do to make sure that the student voice is heard in our deliberations and our decision-making process? I often say that our student representatives on this board ask the best questions and have the most thoughtful insight into any dialogue, because you're in schools every day. Either right now or as follow-up, as you close out your report and you close down the Student Advisory Committee for this school year, I'd love to just know if you have any suggestions for this body, for this board, as to how we can better listen to student voices. Please.
I have a suggestion. I think that it'd be really cool if you guys could visit the different schools that are in your wards and actually speak to the students. because I know that a lot of you guys visit like PTO meetings, but not many students actually attend them. So maybe to be able to visit the schools and actually get direct feedback from the students themselves, since like was said, everything that you guys do directly affects us. So I think it'd be great to get more student input.
Very helpful. Thank you.
I just want to second that. I think that the state board is really, well, it's obviously very important in making decisions for students, but we don't have enough contact like on the ground or in our schools. And so not a lot of students actually know what the state board is and what it does and how it affects their day-to-day lives as students. So I think that if you had more in-person contact with students, that would actually be very helpful.
Thank you.
Yep.
In my opinion, well, first I'd like to say thank you for the feedback, but in my opinion, the problem in school systems now mostly is that policymakers don't actually come to the schools and be in the schools to actually see what's going on. They kind of make assumptions sometimes without hearing student voice. So I would just encourage you guys to continue to come to the schools. I recognize that y'all did like school tours, and that was really helpful for students to see that you guys do care and that you were in the building. But just continue to come to the schools, help out in any way you can, and just continue reaching out to students.
Thank you. And then my last comment in my last few seconds is get your colleagues, your peers to apply to the Student Advisory Committee and to be student representatives. We need your voice and we need your best voices. So talk to your friends and get them to engage with us. And secondly, you're allowed to advocate for yourselves in the Wilson building and before the DC Council and before the mayor. Be active, be engaged. This is civic participation at its best, and the younger you start, you and your peers, the more impact you'll make over your lives. So thank you all for being a part of the process.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with Dr. Woodward.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to comment on the report. I thought it was really interesting that 4 of the 5 bullets really are things that we're talking about on the board. The greater variety in school lunches, I'm not sure that we can address that, but it's good to know that you all are talking among yourselves and realizing that there are possibly things that can be addressed and you can advocate for outside of being a member of the advisory committee. And so I applaud that. I also want to congratulate all of the seniors. I noticed it was quite a few of them on here. Congratulations. And your last year as a high school student and moving on to college. And thank you.
Laura Phelan?
Thank you. I just want to echo my gratitude to all of you, and I look forward to hearing from those who haven't spoken yet about your work. And when I'm reading your PowerPoint, what strikes me is just how grounded it is in a representative set of ideas from the students with whom you engaged. And I wanted to just acknowledge that and thank you.
Just a similar echo of thanks for all you do, especially the insight, and I 100% agree that we should spend as policymakers as much time in the schools as we can listening to you and trying to help solve the problems that you face each and every day. So thank you.
And I'd like to, again, thank the Student Advisory Committee. We had a great committee this year, and you've done some really, really great work. So clone yourselves and make sure we have enough people here to do this next year. Yes, Ms. Robinson.
We just wanted to, on behalf of the Student Advisory Committee, thank all of the board members who continue to come to our meetings and give support, especially Maria, because she was at every meeting and she ensured that we got all the work done, and she just helped us with a lot, especially with the report. So thank you.
That's our great staff again. Good. Yeah. All right, so seeing no additional questions, I will entertain a motion to adopt the report of the Student Advisory Committee. Ms. Robinson, would you like to make the motion?
So moved.
Second. Ms. Rhodes, do you just second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. I would like to call the question. On the motion is to adopt the adoption of school year 2017-2018 report of the State Board of Education Student Advisory Committee. All in favor, say
Aye.
all opposed? The motion is approved. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, gentlemen.
I should have taken a picture.
Wait,
I'd
before you
have
go.
a suggestion. Could we get a picture with our?
Yeah, we actually, before you go, I'd like to ask the student representatives to come to the well. Where we will thank you personally, give you your certificates, and take a picture. Before I'm adjourn first. With no further business before the board, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting of the DC State Board of Education is officially adjourned.